Welcome to my world. Come on in and make yourselves at home. Welcome to my life. I know everything's gonna be alright. Welcome to my world. Oh, won't you come on in? Welcome to my life. It's known as the Tiger's Den. Greetings to all of my subscribers. I want to thank you for being with me for as long as you have, and the new subscribers that's coming on in. We want to say greetings and thank you for your time. This is from Toothless and the moderators. Welcome to the Tiger's Den. Greetings and welcome to the Tiger's Den. This is the voice of Cheryl, and I am Toothless Tiger. Coming to you this week, we're going to talk a little bit about politics and the structure of such a machine. I know they call it politics. I call it politics because the majority of us, the masses, were not taught the mechanics of the machine called politics. So we just kind of know the three branches of government, which I'll go over that with you as well. But I'm going to share a little bit tonight about the Electoral College because I think that should play a pivotal role in this Fani Willis versus Donald J. Trump lawsuit. Because that's inevitably who chooses. And we know that there have been several presidents that won the popular vote but did not make it to the presidency. There's also been, throughout the years with this Electoral College, they have amassed a game of, hi Lovelace, glad you're here. Nice to see you. Amassed a game of, once you picked your electorates to go to vote for the presidency, they were supposed to vote for the person that they represented. Unfortunately, that didn't always happen. And they would go and change who they decided to vote for, which we'll hear about that in the history of the Electoral College. But if you're anything like me, you probably want to know, how did that come about and where did it come from? It is my hope that one day someone will want to know the answers to these questions, or they want to teach their babies so that we can quit repeating the history that we live today, because we are no freer today than we were in 1787, 1765, 17 anything, to be honest. We are no freer as a people. Perhaps we have the opportunity to get into more debt. And I don't know if you ever heard or talked to any of the elders in your family, then maybe you've heard that they also had the same thing that's going on now. It's called sharecropping. And then they would have the corner stores and they would lend them groceries, but they would never pay the bill. It was forever adding instead of subtracting. And we had a situation like that where Phyllis bought a shed, and some of the interest rates on these credit cards, and if you don't have an 800 or 847, then it's no telling what you'll get. But after 2 years of paying religiously every month, it was actually higher than what it was when she purchased it. And so she just went ahead and purchased it outright. But these are the kind of things that we're facing. And it's not just happening to us. It's happening to a lot of us. And a lot of people say they don't like the craziness and they really want to have adult conversations. I don't think they do. I think people want to just let life happen to them as it's going to, because it's happening every day. Everything is going up. Food is going up. Insurance on automobiles, life insurance as you get older or as you get sicker, it changes. Your prescription drugs changes. A lot of companies now, Big Pharma runs everything, but they don't want to pay for name brand drugs all of a sudden. Now we have to be reduced to, what do we call it? The generics. Lovelace, thank you for the conversation. I want to stop by and share some extra peace. Thank you so much for taking time to share this with us. You are appreciated. I am packing and listening. Oh, you're going on a trip? Have a safe one. Right, 17, anything really. Are we ever free, or will be so-called free? Well, let everybody that tell it that's a believer say that whom the Son has made free is free indeed. I don't know what that means anymore, because I don't see freeness. We're losing our ability to even speak. It's only certain things that we can talk about. Adult conversations. I'm not talking about craziness or using my second language, profanity. I'm not talking none of that. We can't even talk about real life issues without it offending someone else. So I don't know how free is free, but I do know this, that we play a part in what's happening to us. And if we don't learn truth and exercise it, then we'll just be saying a lot of cute little sayings, but life won't change for our children. And I'm grateful. My son doesn't have any children, but who knows, one day he may decide he wants to have a child. I don't know. But right now he does not. So that's not a worry in that respect. But my niece that I call my daughter, she has children. And, they're growing every day. And one day they will possibly have children. And I have other nieces and nephews and cousins and friends. And, even enemies that have children that's got to grow up. And we would like to be able to be like-minded at some point in time where we can teach our children what they have not been taught. But be that as it may, I didn't come here to give no family lecture. I just came to share the good news of what I call freedom. It's an individual thing. That's what I've learned. And collectively, it can work for the masses. It's just like in Ecclesiastes when he speaks of the cord. One is all right, two is strong, but three, once you braid them together, they're almost unbreakable. And so we got to start sowing seeds into our future, which or our children, and even our adults, because a lot of us really didn't learn this stuff in school. Now, we all learned throughout the United States. They all had pretty much the same curriculum, but some schools taught better than others. But a lot of us only got minutes of civics. We didn't really get, when I say minutes, I'm not talking about 3, 5. I'm talking about maybe a course. We didn't really learn like we should have learned. It's so many things that we were not taught. Economy. We didn't learn economics. If we learned how to use credit, then perhaps we wouldn't be in the conditions that we're in today, especially me. But I don't know, being a giver, I might be in the same condition, which is, sometimes it feels good and sometimes not so good. And that's when you have to pay back and you really just don't have it. That's when it kind of hurts. But we all have that in our lives, and we all live it every day. And all we can do is encourage one another to be yourself authentically. And, you don't have to try to be nobody else. You don't have to prove nothing to nobody. And as I told y'all, the new word that I learned, and it has helped me immensely, is done. D-O-N-E. When you're done, you're done. And you cut all feelings and ties. Just like a great steak. When it's done, then you eat it. And that's just what life has become for me. Being 65, approaching 66, you have a lot of things to think about when you're retired, when you're in pain, when you know you don't know what the future holds because of your illnesses. But I know if I've lived this long, it doesn't matter what the future holds. If I just do what I can do to help somebody, mainly myself, and help somebody else, I'm going to be all right. Crime is everywhere. Crime is really up everywhere, but everybody say it's down. Of course, we say all that craziness when it's election time, or we may come up with something that happened that's so horrendous that everybody feel, oh, we got to go this way. But if you always remember what I try to share that I really know is true, is that the left wing and the right wing belongs to the same bird. That really doesn't matter. Unless you know the history of whomever you're voting for or looking at. We need to understand the dynamics of local voting, such as district attorneys, mayors, county commissioners, even election officials. We need to learn the order of things. So I'm going back to my silent weapons for quiet wars, pages 39 to 40. I'm going to be sharing that, and then I'm going to share the Electoral College, and then we cannot talk about the Electoral College without speaking on gerrymandering, which affects us a great deal. 70 to 90% of us that live in urban developments, for sure. And it's amazing as I was doing my researching to see where that name came from. And it was very funny. So let me bring up my reading. I'm going to wait before I come on the screen. Silent weapons for quiet wars. This is pages 39 through 40. This is the political structure of a nation, dependency. The primary reason why the individual citizens of a country create a political structure is a subconscious wish or desire to perpetuate their own dependency relationship of childhood. Simply put, they want a human God to eliminate all risk from their life, pat them on the head, kiss their bruises, put a chicken on every dinner table, clothe their bodies, tuck them into bed at night, and tell them that everything will be all right when they wake up in the morning. This public demand is incredible. So the human God, the politician, meets incredibility with incredibility by promising the world and delivering nothing. So, who is the bigger liar, the public or the Godfather? This public behavior is surrender born of fear, laziness, and expediency. It is the basis of the welfare state as a strategic weapon useful against a disgusting public. And remember, this is from the book Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and the author was anonymous. Action/offense. Most people want to be able to subdue and or kill other human beings which disturb their daily lives, but they do not want to have to cope with the moral and religious issues which such an overt act on their part might raise. Therefore, they assign the dirty work to others, including their own children, so as to keep the blood off their hands. They rave about the humane treatment of animals and then sit down to a delicious hamburger from a whitewashed slaughterhouse down the street and out of sight. But even more hypocritical, they pay taxes to finance a professional association of hitmen, collectively called politicians, and then complain about corruption in government. Responsibility. Again, most people want to be free to do the things, to explore, etc., but they are afraid to fail. The fear of failure is manifested in irresponsibility, and especially in delegating those personal responsibilities to others, where success is uncertain and carries possible or created liabilities, law, which the person is not prepared to accept. They want authority, root word, author, but they will not accept responsibility or liability. So they hire politicians to face reality for them. Summary. The people hire the politicians so that the people can, number one, obtain security without managing it, obtain action without thinking about it, inflict theft, injury, and death upon others without having to contemplate either life or death, avoid responsibility for their own intentions, obtain the benefits of reality and science without exerting themselves in the discipline of facing or learning either of these things. They give the politicians the power to create and manage a war machine. Number one, provide for the survival of the nation, which is the womb. Remember, I shared with you guys, the matrix is the womb. The womb is what they've been trying to give us artificially ever since we came out of the womb. So they try to make everything familiar to us so that we can be stuck in that comfort place when we were once inside the womb. Hey, Lord King, good to see you. Let me keep going. Avoid responsibility for their own intentions. Obtain the benefits of reality and science. I think I just read that. I'm reading it over. Without exerting themselves in the discipline of facing or learning either of these things. They give the politicians the power to create and manage a war machine. Number one, provide for the survival of the nation / womb. Number two, prevent encroachment of anything upon the nation / womb. Number three, destroy the enemy who threatens the nation / womb. Number four, destroy those citizens of their own country who do not conform for the sake of stability of the nation / womb. Politicians hold many quasi-military jobs, the lowest being the police, which are soldiers, the attorneys and CPAs, next, who are spies and saboteurs, licensed, and the judges who shout orders and run the closed union military shop for whatever the market will bear. The generals and industrialists, the presidential level of commander-in-chief is shared by the international bankers. And remember, we just talked about the Federal Reserve and the banking families. The people know that they have created this farce and financed it with their own taxes, consent in parentheses. But they would rather knuckle under than be the hypocrite. Thus, a nation becomes divided into two very distinct parts. A docile subnation, brackets, great silent majority, close bracket, and a political subnation. The political subnation remains attached to the docile subnation, tolerates it, and leaches its substance until it grows strong enough to detach itself and then devour its parents. And we see that happening with our children. There is no respect level for our children. It's so sad to see. It doesn't seem like parents have conversations with their children anymore. And then the conversations that we've been geared toward having toward our children were not the correct conversations. They were just subservientness, if that's such a word. I added the ness onto subservient. Yes, sir. No, sir. And you still get unalived. You can be an airman, the best in your field, and answer your door at home. And in less than 6 seconds of answering your door, you too can be unalived. You can comply in every way you know to comply. Don't say a word. Look them in their eye. Put your hands behind your back. Do what they tell you. And you'll hear stop resisting, bing, bang, boom. And it's over. And then when we do decide we're going to cry for a nation or someone who's been hurt in our community, it'd be some of the worst character. But they take them and make them heroes. And then when we have heroes, nobody complains. I didn't hear enough complaints about the airmen. I didn't hear enough sadness. I didn't say take any action against anybody. I said hear pain from mothers, from men who know what it's like to live in a world where you're considered a boy, no matter your age. And you can pretend you're not, and I guess that's why you all have such a problem with each other. It's because you know you don't have a chance with the man. Dr. Neely Fuller kind of broke that down real good. And Neely Fuller, he's not a doctor. Neely Fuller broke that down real good. Dr. Francis Chris Wilson broke down. We have a need to call our women mamas, and our women call our men babies. So, it's amazing how we have been programmed, reprogrammed, deprogrammed. That word color, the one I keep telling you is a semblance of reality, but it's not real. It gives the appearance of a simulacrum, but it's not real. It's amazing to me how we live, what entertains us. But yet we say we love the Lord with our whole heart. And oh wow, we love our children. But our conditions are getting worse in our communities. Our conditions are getting worse in our communities. We can't even have conversations with our children. There was a time we would say, may it never be, but it is. We're going to move on. That was Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And like I said, if anybody want a copy of the PDF and a copy of the Henry Campbell's Black Law Dictionary, all you have to do is hit the email down there and request it, and I'll send it to you at no cost to you. Okay, that's my electoral college chart, but before I go to my chart, I just kind of want to talk about it a little bit, because there may be some of you that are very astute and may know all of this stuff, and I'm very happy to have you. And if anything you want to add to the conversation, please feel free to add to the conversation. And when I finish reading and stuff, I'll check and see. I love interactions. It means a lot. Because I don't know it all. I just been on a journey of discovering who we were as a people just since I've been disabled and retired. And that's been 13 years. I went on the journey starting in the 12 years. And my son actually put me on that path. Hey, Texas guy, how you doing? Glad you're here. My son actually put me on that path. I sent him off to school, which what we want to do as parents. And I didn't send him off because I had money. No. He had to apply for all kind of loans and everything he could get. But his mother supported him the whole time. And he did his part. And came home with a undergrad degree and went on to get a master's degree in business. So what I was there for is, honey, sometimes Mom I knew we have a store chain called Tum Thumb, and I knew where every Tum Thumb was located within a 244-mile radius of the city of Dallas. And I knew that because my nephew lived in Houston. So from Dallas to Houston, going south. And then if you want to go west, I knew as far as Fort Worth and all of their neighboring communities, Tarrant County. I knew all Tum Thumbs because at that time I worked for the state of Texas and I only got paid once a month. And at the state of Texas at that time, we did not make a lot of money. And what I had to do is something I didn't even know was considered illegal. I know I didn't have it, but I did what I had to do. And that was every 2 days I would have to do what I had to do. And I did it. And we made it. My son was in school. He was able to go to school and not be hungry every day, not be without clothing. And he did his part. So I was truly happy. But I did what I, as a mother, had to do. Because his father and I, although we were married 3 years before we ever conceived him, I didn't know when I conceived him, I had left him running that I was expecting a child. And we stayed married for 3 years after I gave birth to my son, but we never lived together as a family. I've always made it available for him to be a part of his father's life and gave his father the open invitation to be a part of his son's life. But our life together was over. I have a brilliant son, a beautiful son, and I'm grateful for the man that he has become. And one day we were having a conversation and he said something to me and it kind of hurt my feelings. And he asked me, do you think because he's a man child? And it had no disrespect to me. He was just talking about what he missed as a young boy from a man, his father. And that touched me so, and it stayed with me. We don't know what we're depriving our children of. Whether we want them to have the relationship, I am a therapy mom, so I took my son to therapy. And one thing the therapist said is, Mom, you can't control their relationship. You just have to make it available. And that's what I did, made it available. But no matter how you think you are a man. This system lets you know, boy, you're not. And then they put enmity between us, the mother, the matriarch, the giver of life, the nurturer, the lover. And I'm talking for humanity. See, we have a real bad problem for us as Asiatic people. But we need to look at this thing as a whole. And we do need to separate. So don't get it twisted. I'm not a person that don't see color. I see all colors. You know, they got a box of them. But it ain't about color. It's the human condition. It's about power. It's about corruption. It's about greed. It's about being docile, unlearned, and don't even know that you have a need to know. That's what it's about. It don't have anything to do with who you love, who you don't love. I don't care who you love. I really don't. Two adults should do whatever they choose to do. I have nothing to do with that. Not a thing. I don't think I have to see it all over the world. But that's the thing today. So it is what it is. But I believe in honesty and truth. And my mantra is, to thine own self be true. And if you're true to yourself, I guarantee you, you'll be true to everybody you meet. Whether they like you or not. Stay true to you. Because the moment you start believing your lies, the moment you lose touch with reality. We all feel the pain of reality, whether we accept it or not. My cousin, she's been gone now. Her son says 16 years. I can't even believe it's been that long. But one thing she used to tell me was, Cheryl, a mother is the first to know when something is off with her child. Be it drugs, at that time, be it homosexuality, be it a gambling habit, be it a food, whatever it is. She said a mother is the first to know and the last to accept it. And you know, that's a true statement. And you really don't learn how true that statement is until you become a mother. And that doesn't mean that you have to be the one that gave the birth. Because a lot of people mother other people's children. And you know, some people say, nobody can love my child better than me. No, they may not have the feelings that you have, but they can love them better than you, because love is an action. And if you're not providing the action to produce something that's positive, then you don't love your child as much as you think you do. You just love the word love. It's like men and women. A lot of women, and you know, I'm a woman and I like to hear I love you. Boy, but when you show me, see, when you show me, then you're going to hear me say, I love you. Because of the things you do for me. That's what it's all about. It's the little things that count. And it's the same with children. Doesn't have to be. Even though they all want a PlayStation and they all want these things, they don't have to have that if they got you. Okay, I see Regina asked Texas Gal a question, so let me see what Texas Gal said. Texas Gal said, our aunt's husband went to go get some diapers for the baby back in 1997. We still waiting for him to come back from absence. He sound like my daddy. He didn't take all that long. But he go get a loaf of bread, girl, and he would come back a year later. I know that's stubborn. Now, I hope did nothing happen to him. He didn't want the responsibility. And that happens to people. See, that's why I keep telling people this stuff is a people problem. We're all human. But our problem is totally different from all other humans. And that's because it's designed that way. We didn't do it. Yeah. Yeah. But he sounded like a man I called daddy. My daddy just didn't stay gone that long, but he would go and stay gone and come back. And when he leave again, we'll have a new addition to the family. Yeah, it was 8 of us. And we all have some stories to tell. Some maybe wasn't so funny back then, but they could really help somebody else. Instead, people like to get on here and tear each other down and expose people's deepest, darkest pain, because it's not necessarily a secret. I always teach anybody I know that you are as sick as your secrets. I really live in a transparent house. So I'm going to throw the rock. Yeah, I can throw one. And you can throw it back. I don't have no problem with that. But I can throw it. Because I can live up to mine. Own up to it and have shared it with some human being somewhere in this earth. I learned a long time ago. You're only as sick as your secrets. And you never give anybody power to lord over you with what they think they know about you, or perhaps what they know. It is what it is. But I want to start now with my electoral college, and I'm going to start with my reading first. And my reading is going to start with it's the History Channel, and it is, why was the Electoral College created? If this can help one child, because I do think we need to teach our children. The only way they can be different is if they learn different. And I know this is not too popular on this channel, because I'm telling you, people are talking about this on other channels, and it's thousands and thousands of people that flock to the channels. But one thing I do know that I just cannot get upset about is the fact that I only have so much energy and so much strength, so I'm only going to do what I want to do. So I don't blame anybody. I appreciate everybody that gives me a cash app, that hits the super chat, that hit my like button, that even share. I even appreciate you more when you're in the chat and you choose to engage in the conversation. It really means a lot. I don't know who all's here that don't know me, but I don't agree to disagree with nobody. We just disagree and we move on if we can't come to a consensus. But we are here. Why was the Electoral College created? The founding fathers had to compromise when it came to devising a system to elect the president. And see, we cannot get away from, I believe there's only one race of people, and that's the human race. But we cannot get away from the fact that society, the colonizers, gave us ethnicities and separated us. And you'll hear this in a lot of the history that now we're not supposed to talk about or teach. But this is our life and what happened to us. And a lot of us don't talk about it and don't teach it because they're not trying to learn it to teach their children. But children need to know truth. In order to be all of this honorable and integral and moral, I know people use those words very fluently. They sound real good. Make for a good storyline. You probably could make an excellent movie. But most people mean none of it. It just sounds good. And who doesn't want to sound good? So let's go. 5 times in history, presidential candidates have won the popular vote, but lost
so look, back in the day, the founding fathers who set up this whole American thing were split on how to pick a president. Some wanted the president chosen by popularity. The others wanted to let Congress pick the president. As a compromise,
I tried to take it off because I didn't want to play it. It has some kind of little music in there, and I don't know if it's some that's approved by YouTube, so I didn't want that problem. But I forgot it keeps popping up every time I come in here. 5 times in history, presidential candidates have won the popular vote, but lost the Electoral College. This has led some to question why Americans use this system to elect their presidents in the first place. Among the many thorny questions debated by the delegates to the 1787 Constitutional Convention, one of the hardest to resolve was how to elect the president. The Founding Fathers debated for months, with some arguing that Congress should pick the president and others insisted on a democratic popular vote. Now, the original, when they had the Articles of Confederation and all of those different things, came with a republic form of government. And here they say in 1787, because of the Organic Act of Congress that happened. So let's keep going. Their compromise is known as the Electoral College. America 101. What is the Electoral College? Popular vote, popular vote. Congress is number 1, Congress. What is the Electoral College? The system calls for creation every 4 years of a temporary group of electors equal to the total number of representatives in Congress. Technically, it is these electors and not the American people. Let me repeat. Technically, it is these electors and not the American people who vote for the president. In modern elections, the first candidate to get 270 of the 538 total electoral votes wins the White House. The Electoral College was never intended to be the perfect system for picking the president, says George Edwards III, emeritus political science professor at Texas A&M University. It wasn't like the founders said, "Hey, what a great idea. This is the preferred way to select the chief executive, period," says Edwards. They were tired, impatient, frustrated. They cobbled together this plan because they couldn't agree on anything else. Electoral College, a system born of compromise. At the time of the Philadelphia Convention, no other country in the world directly elected its chief executive. So the delegates were wading into uncharted territory. Further complicating the task was a deep-rooted distrust of executive power. After all, the fledgling nation had just fought its way out from under a tyrannical king and overreaching colonial governors. They didn't want another despot on their hands. One group of delegates felt strongly that Congress shouldn't have anything to do with picking the president. Too much opportunity for chummy corruption between the executive and legislative branches. They didn't think right. I guess they knew human behavior. Another camp was dead set against letting the people elect the president by a straight popular vote. First, they thought 18th century voters lacked the resources to be fully informed about the candidates, especially in rural outposts. Second, they feared a headstrong Democratic mob steering the country astray. And third, A populist president appealing directly to the people could command dangerous amounts of power. Out of those drawn-out debates came a compromise based on the idea of electoral intermediaries. These intermediaries wouldn't be picked by Congress or elected by the people. Instead, the states would each appoint independent electors who would cast the actual ballots for the presidency. Let me stop for a minute and see what Regina is saying. Oh, okay. She didn't say anything. I thought she said something. But she and Texas gal was having a little laugh. Regina said, I didn't want to assume that, and I thought I would ask first, Lordy. It's funny now. Most likely not back then. And Texas gal said, it wasn't funny when my aunt was working 50 hours a week while she was a full-time student. She struggled, but we laugh about it now. Sure, you're right. Regina, you're right. And that's what keep on living means. If you keep on living, some things that made you cry sometimes now, you can laugh about them. Out of those drawn-out debts came a compromise based on the idea of, okay, I just read that. I'm now on slavery. Slavery and the 3/5 compromise. But determining exactly how many electors to assign to each state was another sticking point. Here, the divide was between slave-owning and non-slave-owning states. It was the same issue that plagued the distribution of seats in the House of Representatives. Should or shouldn't the founders include slaves in counting a state's population? In 1787, roughly 40% of people living in the southern states were enslaved black people who couldn't vote. James Madison from Virginia, where enslaved people accounted for 60% of the population, knew that either a direct presidential election or one with electors divvied up according to free white residents only wouldn't fly in the South. The right of suffrage was much more diffusive, i.e. extensive, in the northern than the southern states, said Madison, and the latter could have no influence in the election on the score of Negroes. The result was the controversial 3/5 compromise, in which 3/5 of the enslaved black population would be counted toward allocating representatives and electors and calculating federal taxes. The compromise ensured that southern states would ratify the Constitution and gave Virginia home to more than 200,000 slaves, a quarter, 12, of the total electoral votes required to win the presidency, which was at the time 46. Did you know, for 32 of the United States' first 36 years, a slave-holding Virginian occupied the White House? John Adams from Massachusetts was the exception. Not only was the creation of the Electoral College in part a political workaround for the persistence of slavery in the United States, but almost none of the Founding Fathers' assumptions about the electoral system proved true. For starters, there were no political parties in 1787. The drafters of the Constitution assumed that electors would vote according to their individual discretion, not the dictates of a state or a national party. Today, most electors are bound to vote for their party's candidate. And even more important, the Constitution says nothing about how the states should allot their electoral votes. The assumption was that each elector's vote would be counted. But over time, all but 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, passed laws to give all of their electoral votes to the candidate who wins the state's popular vote count. Any semblance of electoral independence has been fully wiped out. The founders also assumed that most elections would ultimately be decided by neither the people nor the electors, but by the House of Representatives. According to the Constitution, if no single candidate wins a majority of the electoral votes, the decision goes to the House, where each state gets 1 vote. After the unanimous election of George Washington as the nation's first president, the founders figured that consequent elections with future tons of candidates who would divide up the electoral pie into tiny chunks, giving Congress a chance to pick the winner. But as soon as national political parties formed, the number of presidential candidates shrank. Only 2 U.S. elections have been decided by the House, and the last one was in 1824. Why we still use the Electoral College? So why does the Electoral College still exist? Despite its contentious origins and awkward fit with modern politics, the party in power typically benefits from the existence of the Electoral College, says Edwards, and the minority party has little chance of changing the system because a constitutional amendment requires a 2/3 supermajority in Congress, plus ratification by 3/4 of the states. And we know that we can see that's true because in every facet of life we are considered the minority, and we can never get ahead of anything, it appears. And I did say it appears, so you can take that as allegedly. Columnist George Willis shudders to think of what would have happened in the 1960 election if there had been no Electoral College. John F. Kennedy's popular vote margin over Richard M. Nixon was just 118,574 rights, Will. If all 68,838,219 popular votes had been poured into a single national bucket, there would have been powerful incentives to challenge the results in many of the nation's 170,000 precincts. And that is why we have Electoral College. So then, let me just read one more article. And that article is going to be, well, I'm really going to read 2 more, but it's just one more on the Electoral College, because we're going to talk about gerrymandering once we finish with the Electoral College. And everybody that's in here, please remember to hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed and you're looking in the bushes and the trees, on the beach, in the Bahamas, in Belize, in Aruba, in the sky, wherever you may be, subscribe to the channel and join my membership. I have some great perks. Okay, how the Electoral College was nearly abolished in 1970. The House approved a constitutional amendment to dismantle the indirect voting system, but it was unalived, killed in the Senate by a filibuster. On September 18, 1969, the U.S. House of Representatives voted by an overwhelming 338 to 70 to send a constitutional amendment to the Senate that would have dismantled the Electoral College, the indirect system by which Americans elect the president and vice president. It was the only time in American history that a chamber of Congress actually approved an amendment to abolish the Electoral College, says Jesse Wegman, a member of the New York Times editorial board and author of Let the People Pick the President, the Case for Abolishing the Electoral College. The House vote, which came in the wake of an extraordinarily close presidential election, mirrored national sentiment about scrapping an electoral system that allowed a candidate to win the presidency even while losing the popular vote. A 1968 Gallup poll found that 80% of Americans believed it was time to elect the nation's highest office by direct popular vote. Yet, just a year later, the Senate bill that would have ended the Electoral College was dead in the water. Filibustered by a cadre of Southern lawmakers intent on preserving the majority's grip on electoral power in their states. Despite widespread bipartisan support for the amendment in both large and small states, the Senate came 5 votes shy of breaking the filibuster. It was a remarkable effort, says Wegman, of the late 1960s movement that came painfully close to killing the Electoral College. We've never seen anything like it before, and I fear we may never see anything like it again. And you can read more on the Electoral College on that right there. One person, one vote. Got to get that even. The Electoral College came under fire in the 1960s as part of a larger effort to win full voting rights for Black Americans, particularly in the South. While civil rights lawyers fought discriminatory practices like poll taxes that disproportionately barred blacks from voting, others were challenging a lesser-known phenomenon called malapportionment. Malapportionment refers to the practice, not limited to southern states, of allotting vastly unequal numbers of residents to legislative districts in different parts of a state. In theory, the most populous district in each state should have the most representatives in the legislature. But in practice, that wasn't the case. And this is where that gerrymandering kind of comes into play that we're going to talk about. Starting in the 1920s, a wave of rural blacks flooded into cities in both the North and South, but many states didn't bother to update their apportionment of representatives to reflect that demographic shift. And that's when we started moving, I guess, from all the down south states going to Chicago and New York and California and coming out west to Texas and the different places that we all migrated to. There it goes again. We don't want to hear that. Instead, states like Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama, but also Vermont and California, continue to allot for too few representatives to urban centers and far too many to rural areas. In Tennessee, for example, there was one representative for every 3,800 rural voters in the eastern part of the state, and one representative for every 70,000 voters in cities like Nashville and Memphis. Supreme Court decisions advocate one person, one vote. The result was more political power was allotted for predominantly white rural voters and less to city voters who were more likely to be black. But in a series of landmark decisions in the early 1960s, the U.S. Supreme Court tore down the widespread practice of malapportionment and raised in its place a new democratic principle: one person, one vote. And so let me see what Regina's saying. Regina said the United States has 538 electoral votes in total. Every 4 years, 538 electors from all 50 states, plus Washington, D.C., cast their votes for President and Vice President of the United States. A candidate needs a majority of 270 electoral votes to win each race. Isn't it beautiful how Regina take that and just make it this whole article and just do it in a paragraph, and it says everything that the article says? She is phenomenal in that way, in my opinion. Regina, you must be a writer. You are excellent. Okay, let's see. I probably just read this, and I think I did, yes. The conception of political equality from the Declaration of Independence to Lincoln's Gettysburg Address to the 15th, 17th, and 19th Amendments can mean only one thing: one person, one vote, wrote Justice William O. Douglas in the majority opinion for Gray versus Sanders. Hold up, wait a minute. The Supreme Court outlined political and racial inequalities at the heart of malappropriationment. Malapportionment. Whew, these words. A system which weighted one person's vote over another's. In Westbury v. Sanders, Chief Justice Earl Warren wrote that despite America's demographic shift from rural to urban, the basic principle of representative government remains and must remain unchanged. The weight of a citizen's vote cannot be made to depend on where he lives. Wegman says that the Supreme Court justices were fully aware of how the Electoral College blatantly violated that very principle of representative government, since even the least populous states were guaranteed 3 electors. The Electoral College was an imbalanced system where voters in the smaller states wielded more political power than those in larger states. Now, you know that ought not be. Instead of fixing it, everybody just want to argue about it. Just fix it. And I think there's a lot of people are afraid because of how they did us, we would do them. And as we know, some of us would, because we see it happening. They're using the same system and using it against their own people. But a lot of us really do have honor. and morals and values. And all we want is just an opportunity. A lot of us really do. Not only that, but the winner-take-all system in which states award all of their electors to the candidate who wins the statewide popular vote means that elections can be decided by voters in a handful of swing states, and voters who live in states that are dominated by another political party have effectively no voting power. But as Wegman points out, the court was powerless to overturn the electoral system that was literally written into the Constitution. The court basically told Congress, if you want to make the Electoral College come into line with one person, one vote, you have to do that through an amendment, says Wegman. So that's exactly what Congress did. The man behind the amendment. And for the sake of pronouncing of his last name, I'm just going to say Bay. I don't know with that H on the end, but I'm just going to say Bay. Birch Bay was a young Democratic senator from Indiana, first elected to Congress in 1963. When an older senator passed away, Bay inherited what was thought of then a sleepy assignment, says Wegman, chairmanship of the Constitutional Amendments Subcommittee of the Senate Judiciary Committee. No one could have predicted what would happen next. 53 days after Bay took the post on the subcommittee, President JFK was unalived in Dallas. Kennedy's shocking unalivement raised important questions about what the Constitution says or doesn't say about presidential succession. Less than a month after the unalivement, Bay introduced a resolution to amend the Constitution to provide clear rules for who is in charge of the president and vice president are incapacitated or unable to do their jobs. Winning approval from the House and Senate, the 25th Amendment went into effect in 1967. And so you can take some notes or go back and look at this and then do a little research. It's kind of interesting when you start reading this stuff and finding it out for yourself. It really is. Bay's skillful work garnering bipartisan support for the 25th Amendment caught the eye of President Lyndon Johnson, who tasked the young senator with addressing the Electoral College. Johnson didn't want to trash the system completely, just to outlaw the existence of so-called faithless electors. Johnson was worried that pro-segregationist Southern Democrats would cast their electoral votes for a third-party candidate instead of the mainstream Democratic choice for president. But once Bay started holding committee hearings for this minor adjustment in the Electoral College, he came to believe that such a small dose fix wasn't enough. Trained as a lawyer, Bay was aware of the seismic shift. I don't guess that's seismic. So I'm going to say seismic shift that the Supreme Court had signaled with its one person, one vote doctrine. For the first time in the nation's history, Bay said, "We have achieved the goal of universal suffrage regardless of race, religion, and station in life. And we are witnessing a political development in our states where for the first time in decades, legislatures finally represent people." In a speech on the Senate floor, Bay told his colleagues that trying to fix the Electoral College with tweaks and adjustments would be like shifting around the parts of a creaky and dangerous automobile engine, making it no less creaky and no less dangerous. What we may need is a new engine because we are now in a new age. The only truly equitable solution, he argued, was a national popular vote, one person, one vote. So Bay began the long process of winning legislative support for what he hoped would be his second constitutional amendment. Chaotic 1968 election exposes issues. The Electoral College may have remained a nice political issue if not for the near-miss disaster that was the 1968 presidential election. As Johnson predicted, a pro-segregationist third-party candidate, the Alabama governor, George Willis, came very close to derailing the election by siphoning away electoral votes from the major party candidates, Republican Richard Nixon and Democrat Hubert Humphrey. If Wallace had succeeded in denying both Nixon and Humphrey a majority of the electoral votes, the election would have gone to the House of Representatives, which Wegman argued is even less democratic than the Electoral College. In the House, each state gets one vote for president, no matter if the state is tiny like Rhode Island or huge like California. Furthermore, the House is required to choose between the three top electoral vote getters, so Wallace would have remained in the running and could have used his position as a spoiler to demand concessions from the other parties. That's exactly what happened in 1824 when John Quincy Adams struck a backroom deal with Henry Clay to take the presidency from Andrew Jackson, who had won the popular vote. Wallace's political influence could have set back civil rights in the South for decades. That didn't happen only because Nixon was able to eke out an electoral victory by the narrowest of margins, but even the possibility of throwing the election to the House was a wake-up call to those seeking to end the Electoral College. As Americans started to learn what a chaotic mess that would create, people freaked out, says Wegman. That's the moment when Gallup registered 80% approval for ending the Electoral College, and a wide variety of high-profile political groups threw their support behind Bay's amendment. The American Bar Association, the Chamber of Commerce, the AFL-CIO, the League of Women Voters, and more. After the House voted decisively to forward Bay's amendment to the Senate in September 1969, President Nixon added his own urgent call to action. Unless the Senate follows the lead of the House, all opportunity for reform will be lost this year and possibly for years to come, says Nixon. Thurman wins Black and Jewish lobby for Electoral College. It took another year for the Senate to vote on the proposed amendment to elect the president and the vice president by a national popular vote. The delay was largely due to a drawn-out partisan battle over Nixon's first two Supreme Court nominees, and when it was finally time to put Bay's amendment to a vote, a movement that had broad bipartisan support a year earlier ran into a roadblock. A handful of Southern lawmakers, led by Strom Thurmond of South Carolina, filibustered the bill, a parliamentary maneuver used to block a vote. Why were Dixiecrats so intent on keeping the Electoral College? Wegman argues racial subjugation was at play. I think the saddest thing about all of this, everybody can have these discussions, but the people that it happened to. And that's what saddens me, and that's what we have to get away from. We have to start having these discussions. Perhaps we can't have them on other people's platforms, but you need to start having them in your home. You got to start having them when you have your family, reunions, your family gatherings. Instead of worrying about who's going to bring what to eat. Sure, you can bring something, but let's sit down and talk, and let's give some lessons for the teenagers and the young adults, and let's just give them some topics, and let's just have some adult conversations with our adult children, because a lot of us too don't really know how to have adult conversations with our adult children. We still treat them like children when they're actually adults making life decisions for themselves and maybe their children. So even probably for you, parent, you never know. But we need to start having the conversation. We need to have the conversation amongst ourselves. We need to start having the conversation. Southern states like South Carolina were still a majority white in the late 1960s. The Electoral College, with its winner-take-all system, ensured that the white voting bloc would essentially cancel out the black vote in the South. Thurman and his allies knew that if black voters could vote on equal terms with whites, which is what would happen during a popular vote, that advantage would disappear, says Wegman. For them, saving the Electoral College was protecting their place in the racial hierarchy that their slave-holding ancestors had created. Thurman knew that his Senate filibuster could be broken with a 2/3 vote, so he needed more supporters than just his fellow segregationists. What Thurman did next was nothing short of brilliance, admits Wegman. He courted prominent black and Jewish leaders in large cities like New York City. Yeah, that's how it always happened. And I don't know how we get these leaders. While blacks in the South had comparatively little political sway in presidential elections, the situation was the opposite up north. New York was perhaps the most important swing state at the time, and you could take the state without winning the district in New York City. If a candidate wanted to win those districts, they had to get the support of the black and Jewish communities, two of the largest racial and ethnic minorities in the city. What that meant for black and Jewish leaders in New York City is a seat at the table and a voice in local, state, and national policy making. I just really like to know who did the policies benefit. Maybe their families. Thurman sent personal telegrams to black and Jewish leaders in New York, Chicago, and Detroit, explaining that a direct popular vote would erode their political influence. If minority voting blocs could no longer ensure a winner-take-all electoral victory, they would risk losing their seat at the table. And now you see why they had all of the stars and the rappers and the athletes coming out telling everybody to vote. Your vote matters. Don't ever think it does not. Now you can understand why, if you never understood before. A lot of times we know it's something. Excuse me, I had to drink some water. We know it's something, but we don't quite know what it is. Now we know. To Bay's dismay, a group of NAACP lobbyists came into the Senate office in 1970 and asked him to drop the amendment. I said, look, I busted my tail to see that each of you and your constituencies got one person, one vote, recalled Bay in a 2009 interview. Now you're telling me that if you have 1.01, you want to keep it? Get your rear ends out of my office and don't come back. But the lobbyists had made up their minds. They introduced an Electoral College Amendment 5 more times over the next decade. The only time it came up for a full Senate vote was in 1979, when it got 51 votes, well shy of the 67 vote supermajority needed to pass a constitutional amendment. And that's how we're in the shape we're in today. And you can believe it or not, I'm venture to say these type deals are still going on. And that's why we can never get past anywhere and everybody telling us to pull ourselves up by our own bootstrings and all this good stuff. It doesn't matter what you do. When you have a system in place, keeping you in place, then that's all that you can do. So then we move on. Okay. Let's go back over here to how the Electoral College works. Nope, not that one. Another one. Okay. How the Electoral College works. You know, we start reading from left to right. So number one, each state is allotted one elector for each U.S. representative and senator it has. Washington, D.C. receives 3 electors, the same number of electors as the least populous state. That's because Washington, D.C. is not a state. Okay, going over to my left, number of representatives plus 2 senators for each state. Total electoral seats. Number 2, most electors are nominated at state party conventions. The elector's name are given to the state's election official. Number 3, on election day, voters in each state cast their ballot for the slate of electors representing their choice of presidential ticket. The elector's name do not usually appear on the ballot. Number 4, the state of electors for the presidential ticket that receives the most votes is appointed, and all the electoral votes for that state go to those candidates. Number 5, a candidate needs to win a majority of electoral votes, 270, to be elected president. If no candidate wins a majority of electoral votes, see example below. The House chooses the president and the Senate chooses the vice president. Now, given this information, how is it that Donald Trump can be under investigation, scrutiny, charges of trying to steal an election when you go with your electoral votes, unless there had to be a problem with the system? Because it says the one with the majority gets it as far as the votes go, right? But now we found out here recently that over 247,000 votes, ballots, signatures were not certified as required by law. So perhaps him just making a free speech statement to a friend, perhaps that's what caused the problem. Because a lot of times the problem is really not the problem, it's the cover-up that really becomes the biggest thing in the world, and everything falls apart. But that's the Electoral College and how it works. And then it shows you the states here and the numbers that each state gets. These are the numbers that each state get. Like Texas gets 34, California 55. A lot of these states I don't know, like just seeing them like that. Florida, I know that's 27. And I know the Carolinas and all them people are somewhere up in there. Y'all know where your state is. I don't. Okay. In December, in a largely ceremonial gesture, the electors cast ballots for president and vice president and are expected to follow the popular vote of their state. The voters are counted at a joint session of Congress, and the president officially is elected. And this got the opposing party electors. And then it says the candidate who wins the popular vote in a state gets all the electoral votes. Previous close calls. 4 times in U.S. history, the candidate who won the popular vote lost the election. In 1824, the House decided the election because no candidate won a majority of the electoral votes. Elected president. 1 D.C. elector abstained. 1824, John Quincy Adams. Popular vote was 30%. Electoral was 8.4, or is that 84? Andrew Jackson, 41.3, 99. Henry Clay, 13.1, 37. William H. Crawford, 11.2, 41. 1976, Rutherford B. Hayes, 58%, 185. And this comes with those people changing who they vote for. That's where this comes from. Samuel J. Tilden, 51%, 184. 1888, Benjamin Harris, 47.8%, 233. Grover Cleveland, 48.6, 168. And then 2000, George W. Bush, 47.8%, 271. Al Gore, 48.4, 266. Amazing. The math is not mathing. Then we just go on down, and this tells you about the branches of government that, like I said, most of us know these branches of government. Legislative is the Senate. Let me just come over here. And the House of Representatives. The middle is the executive, which is the president, vice president, and its cabinet. And then the third is judicial, which is the Supreme Court and other federal courts. Okay. So the legislative branch makes laws, approves presidential appointments, controls money, can declare war. There are 2 senators from each state. The number of congressmen is based on state population. Number 2, that's the executive. enforces laws, veto laws, pardons people, appoints federal judges, declares states, I think they meant states of emergency, elected every 4 years. And then the judiciary interprets laws, decides if laws are unconstitutional. Supreme Court is appointed by the president, can overturn rulings by other judges, makes arrangements for prisoners. There are 9 justices. And they were even talking about changing the number of justices. And I don't know how they do that. This is just another thing that I have that shows the breakdown of the branches. So we don't have to go through that one. Gerrymandering. Let's just see what that means. What it means. To gerrymander is to divide a state, school district, etc. into political units or election districts that give one group or political party an unfair advantage. When politicians gerrymander, stretching their districts into absurd shapes just to maintain power, citizens often suffer the negative consequences. Gerrymander in context. The House has to redraw its lines every decade to account for population shifts, and that redistricting process has long been dominated by partisans of both sides, gerrymandering seats to benefit their party. Cameron Joseph, Vice, 10 November 2022. Now, one thing that Judge Joe Brown always says is that that's one of the reasons why they're not really having all of this great issue with all of these immigrants that's being let in, is he said for the first time when he took the census this past time that he didn't see where they asked for if you were a citizen or if your parents were a citizen. And they were doing that to get the majority of the people in certain areas of town. So when they get ready to do the districts, they would be able to put more people, again, a disadvantage. Now, that's his belief. He doesn't know. Well, he may know. I don't know. But he said it was his belief. So I'm going to go with what he said, that's his belief and has been his experience after practicing on the bench for over 50 years. That doesn't mean that you know everything, because you can't predict the future and you don't know, but you just know behavior, and you go by past behavior kind of dictates, future behavior. So Elbridge Gerry was a respected politician in the late 1700s and early 1800s. He signed the Declaration of Independence, served as governor of Massachusetts 1810 to 1811, and was elected vice president under James Madison. While governor, he tried to change the shape of voting districts to help members of his political party get elected. Oh, excuse me. I got the sneeze. His system resulted in some very oddly shaped districts, including one, Gerry's home district, that looked a little like a newt. And a newt is like a little salamander. It's long and skinny and ugly, and so that's why they called it. Because it looks like a salamander, they made it a gerrymander. Upon seeing a map of the bizarre regional divisions, a member of the opposing party drew feet, wings, and a head on Gerry's district and said, "That will do for a salamander." Another member called it gerrymander. Thus, gerrymander became a term for such political schemes. So this is something they do to again disenfranchise the marginalized groups. And I got this from the Sierra Club Lone Star chapter, Redistricting and What It Means for People's Health and the Environment. This article was September 30th, 2019, and this is a Texas Congressional District number 35, and it was written by Nat Johnson. And that's the area that they're showing that they're trying to destroy. The census hasn't even started yet, but the process to redraw our legislative and congressional district maps is already underway. It's strange. We haven't even done the counting of the census, but the Texas House Committee on Redistricting is already conducting public hearings across Texas to take input about where and who our communities of interest are. This also has to do with gentrification and how you get all of these people to come into a neighborhood that when you live there, it's all broken down, and maybe your parents left you a home and you do the best you can to keep it up. And some people don't, but it's all broken down and you can never get any help, never get anybody to come in and help. And then people decide they want to move back into the city. And so then they start wanting to buy your property. Or if you're delinquent in your taxes, they take your property and sell it off. A lot of corporations are buying homes in a lot of the older neighborhoods in the state of Texas, and I know in the city of Dallas. And they're just buying up everything, and they call you every day, 3 and 4 times a day, wanting to know if you want to sell your home, Then they build these elaborate homes around your home. They build homes around my home that's $300,000 and $400,000 in worth. And my home is just a little under $200,000. So they're raising the property value. And then now all of a sudden the electricity every storm is going out. Makes no sense at all. But that's just another way that it happens. And we have to start educating ourselves and each other so that we can be prepared and at least know how to fight. And we fight by way of speaking with the people that we vote in office. That's why it's good to do your research and know who you're voting on to see what they stand for, how they voted in the past, because somebody's going to be an incumbent in the race, and you need to know how they view things. What is the community of interest? It's not your fantasy football league or book club. It's basic. It's fundamental. These are geographically connected communities that share common social or economic interests. Here are some easy ones. People who live in the same city, county, or school district. The League of Women Voters adds that these communities can be people who share similar living standards, use the same transportation facilities, have similar work opportunities, or have access to the same media of communication relevant to the election process, as well as shared common goals. These are all communities of interest that should be kept whole as much as possible in representation in government. Well, we know what should be don't always happen. But we got to just, learn and make it happen. Why does keeping a community of interest whole in district maps matter? This is the key to representation. People who share a common interest should have the power to represent their shared interests in government. Otherwise, they will be marginalized and left out of key decision making. This is such an incredibly important issue that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed in part to ensure that historically disenfranchised communities, especially African American communities, are protected from having their interests marginalized. Why is it everybody knows about the marginalization, talks about the marginalization, but when we have the conversation, they say that we're being opposite races, and we shouldn't be talking about this. Slavery is over. No, we should be having the conversations. We really should. And I thank you. It's two of you still here. I truly appreciate it. But we should be having the conversations. It's just unfortunate that we're not interested until it's too late. And it reminds me of the people in the days of Noah. Whether you believe those stories are real stories or just metaphors, allegories, parables, whatever they may be, it's a lesson to be learned. And we're not getting the lesson. We keep repeating the same type of history and keep getting a worse result. Every generation should get wiser. We're seeming to get more ignorant. I don't know. Maybe this is just one woman's opinion. So everything I say on this show is my opinion and nobody else's. And I don't speak for other people. I'm just speaking for me. Other communities of interest. It's not just political jurisdictions like cities that need to be kept as whole as possible when revising district maps. It is critical to keep communities of color together in district maps as well. But there are many other communities of interest that need to be factored in when redrawing maps. Let's talk about pollution. And that's really something to talk about, y'all, because we grew up in communities in Dallas where we had packing houses, where the stench was so bad. We had Proctor and Gamble in the heart of South Dallas, where it was horrible when they was making the soaps and things of that nature. In West Dallas, we had bricklaying companies and paint companies where they had lead in the air, where some of those children still get checks to this day. And who knows, that could be why I was born with a third-degree heart block, because of the pollution and the conditions in which we have to live and where we have to live. We don't have a choice in the matter. If we did, we would definitely choose different. But then they come in and clean up there and the pollution, and then everybody wants to move back into the city, and you're just supposed to give up your home that nobody wanted because you were there. And it's okay now because they want to live 3 minutes from downtown now. They want to be able to walk across the bridge instead of ride. They want to be healthy. And they is anybody who's in the position to do that. That's who they are. It might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you're trying to think of your communities of interest. If you're like me, you're generally trying to think of positive things. My city, my kids' school district, my neighborhood, etc. The less obvious ones might be things like transportation corridors. If you think about the environment, the first thing that comes to mind might be watersheds. That is a community of interest. Essentially, everyone living on top of the Edwards aquifer has a shared interest in ensuring that aquifer, that's aqua, is protected and preserved. I don't even know what that is. I gotta look that up. But in areas of Texas that are disproportionately affected by pollution, it is incredibly important that their representation in the Texas legislature and Congress reflect their interest in breathing clean air and drinking clean water. Think of the communities that lived on the fence line of polluting refineries and petrochemical complexes. In some cases, these communities are predominantly low income and communities of color too. And the locations of polluting refineries and complexes were chosen precisely because the political power of these communities was diminished. Fair district maps can help ensure that communities like these can elect representatives that can fight for them. And that rarely happens because that's the way it is, like down close to Beaumont, Texas, and Port Arthur, between Beaumont and Houston and Port Arthur. They have a lot of those refineries down there. And then they have the tire companies that make the rubber tires and stuff. Yes, it's really bad. Unfair district, aka gerrymandering. And a lot of us don't even have this word in our vocabulary. And I'm not talking to all of you educated ones and the ones who sought this stuff out for themselves. I'm talking about the ones who really don't know and really have children and really need to be teaching them this. And I'm talking to people from all walks of life, because it's the masses that's getting mistreated. And it's our whole bloodline. But the masses is a part of all of that as well. So I'm talking to a people that are hurting, that are marginalized, that feel left out, and that can see themselves left out of the American dream, no matter how you work toward making it a reality. No matter how many hours of sleep you lose, you must get your rest. You cannot stay up chasing a dream that you don't control. You control you and the way that you maneuver and manifest things. But you don't control a system that's in place to keep you in your place. And that's out of their space. So I've said enough on that one. Gerrymandering is the opposite of fair redistricting. This is the intentional splitting up of communities of interest to marginalize their political power. In some cases, communities of interest are split up because support for one political party is concentrated in one area. The easiest example of this is Austin. That's our state capital. Our capital city has been likened to a blueberry in a bowl of tomato soup, a metaphor that really isn't accurate anymore. But that's another topic, because it has reliably voted mostly for Democrats for a long time. The same can be said of other urban areas in Texas, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, for example. And remember what Quiet Weapons for Silent War says. We choose these people to do this stuff to us because we really secretly, probably, maybe want to do some of this stuff ourselves, but since we're afraid and we don't want to take no chances, then we pick people that's supposed to represent us, yet we know they're just selling us a pipe dream. Oh, it's so sad. The same can be said of other urban areas in Texas. Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, for example. If district maps were drawn fairly, Austin will have at least a couple Democrats representing it in Congress, but it is represented by a whopping 5 representatives, and only one of them is a Democrat. That is delusion. Racial gerrymandering has a long and sordid history, but it still lingers today. This is the intentional splitting up of communities of color to dilute their power. It is illegal, but even recently, it has happened. Check out what happened in North Carolina. And I would suggest that you guys go and research that, because that really was a big case. As someone who is relatively new to a higher level of engagement on redistricting, I really don't know how much the map makers consider communities that are united by environmental racism and injustice. But I do believe they need to hear about them, and more importantly, know where they are. The hearings. Let's be honest, those who are aware of redistricting probably do not have a high degree of confidence that any public input would affect the new maps. I bet the public confidence in the redistricting process is about as high as thinking you will get in and out of the DMV in less than 15 minutes. It seems like a process too easily corrupted by special interests. And I would agree. I have those same thoughts, visions of shady backroom conversations, cold and calculated political operatives drafting maps with cutting-edge software and secure their hold on power. I'm sure that's happening. That can't stop us, though. Texans have to engage in the public meetings and put these communities of interest on the public record, despite our low confidence that it will matter. Because if we don't, those special interests can claim these communities were not identified and justify not factoring them in when the new maps are developed. And the only thing that keeps us from really doing things is fear. And it's either fear of failing or fear of succeeding. But it's fear. But everybody who says they love the Lord, they don't fear no man. They only fear God. But is it God, the government ordinance department? Or is it God, the one that you call holy and divine? Which God is it that you fear? Ask yourself that question and answer it honestly. I think of this kind of like, if you don't show up, you don't exist. It stinks. It's a hurdle and a huge organizing and outreach effort that is arguably outsourced by state government. How much effort is the House Redistricting Committee putting into making sure everyone knows about these meetings? They're not doing it. And forced onto the public and civil society organizations to ensure people know about them and have opportunities to identify themselves. And if you notice, we have all of these fraternities and sororities, and the only thing that we know that they do is have conventions every other month in somebody's city. And they're spending bukus of money. I'm talking boatloads to go to these conventions. But what are they teaching us, the people? Nothing. Because they live in gated communities or nice neighborhoods. They drive the finer vehicles. Their children go to the better schools. And so they don't have an issue with this little menial stuff that we have an issue with every day of our lives. But they say that they're helping the young sisters come up and the young brothers, and they have all these scholarships. And you see them giving all this money for a convention here, a conference there, and then they give away $100 scholarship. And they all went to college. Some of them got the sorority or the fraternity but didn't get the degree. It's unfortunate, but it's our reality. And it's like that in all walks of life. Sad. Let me keep going. Okay. Well, now, we know about it, and the Sierra Club wants to engage and help you engage. There are many organizations already working hard to get the word out, train people in how to prepare testimony, and identify important communities of interest that should factor into the creation of new district maps. Some of these groups include the ACLU, the League of Women Voters, and the Texas Civil Rights Project. And when they say the League of Women Voters, that takes me back to the suffrage period when we were marching and fighting for the right to vote, and we stood with our sisters, and they got the right to vote before we did, and then when we needed their assistance, they said, oh no, that's not for us. We not about that. So we have a trust factor. At some point, we got to start trusting one another, and we got to show trustworthiness. You know, a lot of these people I meet and I hear and I talk to, they say they don't have friends, but they all love the Lord. I have to keep going back to that, because I know it's written that in order to have friends, you got to show yourself friendly. So it's very hard for me to comprehend how you all have all this great love for a God that you can't see, but you have no real human connection to the people that bleed and cry and look exactly like you in some shape, form, or fashion. Perhaps y'all don't have the same facial features, but you know, you do have skin, and you know, all our skin is pretty much alike. It may be different tones, but you know, it all looks the same. If you should cut it, the blue is going to turn red once the air hits it. You know, if you get sick and your nose runs, it's all going to pretty much look the same. It's really sad. And then a lot of people say, well, I don't come on here for that. You ought to, because some of the stuff you come on here for, you really ought not be doing. You know, it's not that much entertainment in the world. And all of us are not going to get rich. I've come to the conclusion I don't even get monthly checks. So I certainly ain't going to get rich. And I try my best to quit supporting people, but, you know, sometimes I do. Because that's who I am. Some people put in some awesome good work. I don't know if y'all ever looked at E-Band films and if y'all know anything about the Young Thug trial, but that guy breaks it down, so his name is posted. He breaks it down so it's like nobody's business. Liquid Concrete be breaking down in videos talking about these entertainments and the boule and the people that keep us in the conditions in which we're in. There's not any hatred involved. It's reality, it's truth. And you only as sick as your secrets. And you can only say so much on somebody else's platform. There's no hatred. But we got to start being honest. And honesty and love is not always a good feeling. Not always. It doesn't come with no knocks upside your head, but you might have a pang or two in your heart. You may drop a tear or two when you start thinking about your reality. What it is or what it could be. What it has been. We got real issues. We have real men here hurting, but they can't have a real conversation with nobody. Real women that are really hurting and going through some things with their children, with their spouse, with their parents, with themselves. You know, you don't have to involve nobody. It can just be you. I know that's the way my body operates. Some days are good and some days are not so good. But yet I rise. As long as I got breath in my body. It ain't much I'm going to do. But I'm going to rise. As often as I am allowed. Here are 4 things you can do. Read up. Read more about the process, how to end gerrymandering, and get involved by going to fairmapstexas.org. Fair Maps Texas is a coalition of nonprofits working together to fix the broken redistricting system in Texas. So I don't know, they may have fair maps in every state. This is just an article that I found and it was to Texas. But check it out. They probably can put you in touch if you want to do something in your state if you do not live in Texas. Take a look at the League of Women Voters redistricting tool. which includes this awesome testimony guide, a great planning resource if you're ready to attend a hearing. To learn more about how you can get involved in the redistricting process, Fair Maps Texas also organizes training sessions across the state. That's fantastic. That's something that Phyllis would be interested in. She's an ambassador for the city of Dallas, for our district, for our Mayor Pro Tem. And she works diligently, giving of her time and herself to the senior citizens of this district, District 4, Dallas, Texas. Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, Carol King Arnold. We love her and what she's trying to do, and she fights diligently for us. She does. It really helps when you start meeting the people that you put in office and talking with them and know what they stand for. But you know they're only one vote. That's why everything is supposed to be, we reach across the aisle. And that's why they created the two-party system. So it can be division, opposites. It ought not be. You form relationships and alliances like I thought you did on YouTube, but that's not the case. If you go and support people, they talk in their chat, they get mad. And I'm like, wow, I thought this is why we want people. So, you have to learn how to govern yourself. When you don't know, be quiet long enough to see what goes on. And you will soon find out what goes on. And then you make your decision on how you want to carry yourself. That's all. Make your voice heard. Attend a public hearing on redistricting and share your thoughts and get them on the record. Here's a list of tentative hearing dates and locations. Stay in touch. We want to hear from you about your experience and your thoughts about redistricting and how it affects our ability to address environmental injustices. Now, I want to show y'all gerrymandering. This is what it looks like, y'all. It's really funny. And the way the screen is, I don't know if y'all be able to see it good, but let me try to get it so y'all can really see. Okay, so here you go, y'all. How to steal an election. Hear what they said? How to steal an election. An area with 50% where 60% are in Party 1, green, and 40% are in Party 2, purple. Okay? Fair districting. There's your purple. There's your green. Divided into 5 districts. 3 greens elected, 2 purples elected. Same ratio as population. Well, let's show you gerrymandering. Old Jerry here is going to show you how he came to get his name like a salamander. Gerrymandering. Divided into 5 districts. 5 greens elected. Purple has no representation. You see, here's purple. Here's 5 greens. And the way that purple does not have representation, look how the map is drawn. Divided into 5 districts. 2 greens elected, 3 purples elected. Purple has more representation, even though green is the majority party. And that's how it looks. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that. And I have a couple of little, if you want to stay, we're still having good time. but I don't know if it seemed like it could have been a little boring or something, but I enjoyed it. But I wanted to show a little bit of our girl up in Dolton who is doing the absolute most. Though Tiffany, Mayor, Henyard, she's doing the absolute most. And then Fani, Willis got a bad blow. And of course, we've probably seen that and heard about it because now they have appointed. Thank you, Regina. You and I and the other two people that are here. I appreciate y'all and hope y'all truly enjoyed it the way we did, because Regina has taught me so much, and I don't believe that you're making this about, well, it is about politics, but I don't think that you're taking me out of a place that I don't want to be. Because what I'd like to do is learn for myself and then educate. Because I know we were not taught these things. So I don't have a problem. I don't have an enemy. I don't have a nothing. I don't have a dog in nobody's fight. I do what I do, but I do want my people to know. Because everybody say they believe again in this Son book, and it's written, if my people that are called by my name would humble themselves and pray, turn from their wicked ways and seek my face, then I will hear from heaven and heal their land. Now, I just don't know if people really believe that. They think that's a good song, because it is a good song. They just like to hear the scripture, or, I don't know if people really live by that or not. And I know a lot of people say that they're really interested and you really tell some good stuff, but I hope y'all really be looking. I don't get a lot of views and stuff, but the views I get, I'm grateful. And y'all keep looking. And if you hear something that you want to hear again, go back and look at it again and do like I do. When I'm studying a subject and I'm listening to someone teaching that subject or talking about it, giving keys, then I just take notes. And I'll go frame for frame and take notes, and then I'll go back and research it on my own. But Fani Willis was dealt a little blow while she's, doing all her bragging and pretending she's not concerned. While she's pretending she's not concerned about what's going on, I don't believe that, because they have actually put her case on the docket for October 4th, which chances are great that she's not going to do anything before November. I think it's 5th is the voting day this year. And they have until March, I think they said the 25th, where they must respond, the appeals panel. And I had seen a video that had the 3 men. I wanted to show that, but I didn't see it this evening. And I didn't save it when I looked at it. And I've looked at so many videos since then, I can't remember what it is. People no longer believe. Some only believe what is told to them. And or think whatever is. And that is it. I believe that, Regina, for real. I really do. I'm going to read, you said exactly, lobbyists should be done away with. A lobbyist is considered an effort to influence power, often by offering contributions. And that's true, because I really would love to know how this woman, Fani Willis, goes from being broke and just making a regular DA salary to being since 2021, $8 million strong. And they want us to believe she's got this great portfolio and she owned $2 million worth of property, but she's got the state paying for her a place to live. Somewhere there's got to be something wrong with that. I mean, then they say she has over $600,000 worth of gold. Well, at least she knows that gold is money. She's not teaching anybody in her area, none of the children, about gold and silver It's really sad, y'all. I ain't lying. The money that these people are getting away with, the same with the Young Thug trial. They're not going to make me believe, after hearing from that committee, how much money those commissioners give to those courts and to the judiciary. They gave them $75,000, million. And so even if they split up 75 million 4 ways, that's a lot of money to funnel through. And that's why you can have the longest trials in the history of Georgia. And I understand Georgia is one of the 13 colonies, but this is ridiculous what's going on. It's really, really, really sad. And these women are so dogmatic. But I want to show y'all, too, that they're not the only ones that's like this. I found a town where this lady could not even get the keys to her office after winning mayor. And so it's not just the black girl magic and the angry black woman that's going through. This lady is truly a decent person, but the person that she is replacing, that's where her problem is. It is very sad, deeper than an uninformed person could ever imagine. Yes, it is, Regina. It really is. But I want y'all to see this. This is so sad. I mean, you know, boy, if mothers could come together, women, whether you have babies or not, if women could know their work and put it into action. You know, I see them doing that in a lot of the communities, and I don't have a problem, but I do have a problem with them, you know, answering to... They say that, you know, we got to have leaders and stuff. I don't know about that. I can't speak to that. And I know the people that I see that they call them leaders is nobody that I would want leading me. And I'm not saying they're not the smartest people in the world, because they may be. But I don't think that's it. I think that's been our problem all along. And we keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. You got to lead yourself. You got to know law begins and ends with you. You got to know that you were given unalienable rights. You were. Through your Creator. And you got to know that. Now we can get together and work together. We can do that. And perhaps we can even have a leader one day. But it would have to be just like a minus the electoral college. We have to look at this person and, you know, we all agree that you got that, what we need to help us get where we want to go. And you're willing to do it. And we're willing to help you do it. Not that you do everything or you tell us everything and you do nothing. I am born a leader, but I couldn't lead no people because I ain't going to want to do nothing. I'm just going to be giving out orders. It ain't nothing wrong with that. It's really not. But you should never, ever ask people to do things that you're not willing to do. That's just my belief. You just shouldn't do it. But let's look at this story, because I thought this was awfully sad. And it just restored me to know that it's a human thing. And it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, no matter what ethnicity you claim. It is truly, when I say truly, it's truly a human thing.
No access to the city building. The fiscal officer is only required to work 98 days a year and makes almost 75 grand in a town of fewer than 400 residents. And the only people who have access to any financial documents are that fiscal officer and her dad, who is her boss. It's happening in Little College Corner, so I went there to find out what's really going on. A couple miles away from Oxford, nestled against the Indiana border, is the tiny village of College Corner, Ohio. With fewer than 400 residents, you might think nothing happens here.
Running for mayor was never on my agenda.
Molly Kaysen says she was uncomfortable with what was happening inside this tiny building, the village government office, so she ran for mayor last November and won. And in the 4 months she's been in office, the mayor can't unlock the door to the village office.
So when you say locked out, do you mean literally locked out?
Literally locked out.
Now, is it normal for the mayor not to have access to this place?
I wouldn't think so.
The mayor does not have a key to the building.
No.
Well, that's a little nuts.
Randy Freaking, a retired attorney, was shocked at this news. He worked as a village attorney and specialized in employment law. Kaysen and 2 new council members have other big concerns in tiny College Corner. With fewer than 400 residents, the village only has 1 full-time employee, the fiscal officer, Jennifer Woods. And this is the village administrator, Mike Sims. He's a volunteer and Jennifer Woods' dad.
Does that set off alarm bells to you?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like they're the only 2 that have the power to everything. So they're the only 2 that have access to the bank accounts. They're the only 2 that can speak to the contractors. They're the only ones that can talk to the attorney. What is the need for just the 2 of them to have all the power?
That power was cemented just a couple of days before the new mayor and council members were sworn in. A special meeting was called, which made Woods and Sims the only 2 with the power to effectively do anything in the village.
They made sure nobody had access to the village attorney except father, daughter, fiscal officer, and administrator. Why? What are you hiding? What don't you want the council members that should have access to that attorney to know?
I mean, we have called and called and called and called.
The mayor claims she asked for financial records and wasn't given them until Butler County prosecutor Mike Moser made a call for her.
So it took a prosecutor getting involved
In order to get the records, yes.
That's insane. All of these things are public records. So certainly the council members should be entitled to see all of these things. The mayor, the council members ought to have access to the records, ought to have access to the office. Somebody has to do oversight. So, I mean, why in the world would you make that the rule? Unless you're trying to hide something.
There was another special meeting held days before the new members were sworn in to approve an employment contract for the fiscal officer, Jennifer Woods. The contract lists her pay at more than $72,000 a year, gives her 30 days of vacation and 120 sick days, 15 more next year. And she's not required to hold any office hours.
In 38 years of practicing employment law, I never saw a contract with 120 sick days per year, paid sick days.
This is a very generous.
It's a very generous contract.
If she wanted to, she would not have to work any more than 9,800 days.
I believe that's the correct calculation.
I'm curious as to why you had to hold a December 29th meeting to change how the village is run.
So I went to the village meeting to try to talk to the village administrator.
And as a village administrator, sir, can you tell me why the mayor doesn't have access to this building?
The fiscal officer.
You have a wonderful, when I say wonderful, wonderful employment agreement. Could we talk about that, please? May I speak with
and any council members about these issues.
Are you comfortable with the fact that this village office isn't open?
I tried multiple times to talk to every council member, Mike Sims and Jennifer Woods, to no avail, leaving me and the newest elected members of this little village's council asking more and more questions.
I hope that there is nothing going on. I hope that everything's right. But from the looks of it, it doesn't look that way.
One of the new council members filed a lawsuit to get financial documents. She tells me she got the documents she wanted at 1 a.m. on the day that mediation began this week.
All right, so could anyone explain at all why the fiscal officer was actually given this kind of sweet contract?
Okay, so I did speak with the former mayor on the phone. He did not want to talk on camera. He says it was a thank you to Jennifer Woods Woods for being a good employee for more than 20 years. I will tell you, I spoke to the Butler County prosecutor. He is aware of the concerns in that village. And I spoke to the Ohio State Auditor, who tells me a full audit of the village's finances will be done soon. So we'll stay on top of this.
All right.
So now what do y'all think about that one? 126 paid sick leave days. Well, let's go visit our old mayor over here, Miss Tiffany. She is definitely a piece of work, if I've ever heard of a piece of work. I want y'all to hear this about the $6.8 million. And I want y'all to hear how she pronounces her words. And, you know, I don't know if this is a speech impediment or if it's just, you know, the way she sounds and talks. I honestly don't know. But I want y'all to check it out. This is by Public Ops Court who did this. And so let's take a look at Miss Tiffany here. And please listen above everything.
Received the $6.8 million.
Keep going on your questions.
Are you going to answer?
Keep going with the questions because that got nothing to do with the bills. So
that's grant money that was already, but okay, so everybody would know that that's the answer because it's not being answered. But on May 3rd, we received the email from Bert, Costanza, and Carberry, which says that we owe them $4,501.27. They've been requesting this since August 28th, 2023. We once again get here. I don't recall them being on the warrant list. So there's an issue that we pick and choose who we're putting on the warrant list, who we're not putting on the warrant list. What really drew my concern was that someone sent us an email and then we actually spoke to this person on the phone. And the email reads, "Thanks for your call this morning. Per our conversation, see the attached. This engineering firm was hired and has a proposal signed by Mr. Freeman. His invoice number is 1092. He is saying that we owe him $7,482. So, of course, I asked what was it in reference to. He said that Mr. Freeman contacted him with the help of Ron Smith, who was the engineer, saying that they needed a proposal for 15022 Lincoln. Now, I'm concerned because 15022 Lincoln is not our property to my knowledge. So why would we be paying a bill for $7,482? I do know that as being a village that we do have to go through proper protocols and we don't have certified people to do this. But after reading, it says my email to the engineer on record on 11/21/2023 indicating our findings and concern with the request for missing information or corrected drawings to be sent. A letter of our architect indicating numerous deficient items are highlighted for some of your review. The letter of our mechanical engineer indicating deficiency in items for your review. Again, we strongly recommend the construction stop immediately until such time these items are addressed by our architect on record. Now, I'm concerned because the man keep calling about his money and it's never been on the warrant list. But I'm more concerned that beautiful big building at 15022 is not structurally sound, because there's a 12-page report that says there are all these issues. So my question, and this is discussion, is somebody please call this man about his $7,000, which I don't understand why the owner would not be paying for this. And then what are we doing in reference to all of the, has anybody followed up about all of these concerns about their property?
Thank you for your concern. Anything else? Anything else?
Yeah, y'all got the answer right there, so y'all know what's going on.
All right. Anything else?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Well, when we discussed the bills, I just heard you mention a few things earlier, and I think that even though we've been saying this for months, since you'll continue to say what you're going to say, I guess I should continue to tell the residents the truth. When we talk about our financial state, it's sad. You know, the things that I could tell you would scare you as a resident in regards to the things that the people who are over the day-to-day operation, the decisions that they make, the fact that they do not prioritize this spending, and then they come up here and say, hey, vote for this, vote for that. I found it quite interesting that we have our mayor that just sat up here and said, oh, you want receipts for the taxes? I'll put it on Snapchat. I found that particularly interesting, considering that we've been asking for financials for months. Put that on Snapchat for us, please. We have $4 million in checks that the board have approved that have not been dispersed. The checks are on someone's desk. Whose desk? We do not know. So when we continue to ask for financials, when we make decisions, it's just responsible. You know, we were elected to do a job, and that's what we're here to do. We keep saying, hey, this spending is getting out of control. We've been saying that for months. You have Trustee Belcher just set up here and asked, hey, if we're making decisions on vote for the bills, could someone tell us about the $6.8 million grant? We didn't receive an answer. But yet, we're told that the bag is being here. The bag is present, but the bag is empty, guys. It's empty. We have, she stated, the public works. For months, Trustee House has been stating, hey, you know, we have to watch our spending. We have to prioritize the spending because we know that payouts are due for public works and police. It's coming, it's coming. You have an administration that set up here months ago and said, oh, in April, we're going to make sure that you all are reimbursed because you all do such a great job for the village. And we want to make sure that we take great care of you because we love you so much. But yet, I'm receiving calls saying that they've only received 1/3 of their money. So either we have the money or we do not. And it's extremely important that we realize that we do not have the money. If in regards to the financials, if we had the money and if they were providing us, because they just say, oh, well, we provide you with the financials, or they said we don't, and how do they know that we're in a deficit? Well, if we were provided with the information, there would be no reason for those people to be coming to our door requesting the information that they've already mysteriously provided us with. So I'm going to say, when we make financial decisions, it's not to sit here and argue, it's not to go back and forth, but it is to let the residents know that we don't have it. All of these services that you all need, we have to have some money to be able to provide you with those services. And it would just be totally irresponsible for us to continue to vote for things, negligent things. And yeah, we don't even know the village's financial true state. We just know it's $4 million on someone's desk. So thank you, residents. I hope that you have the information that you have been asking for in regards to where's the information? Where are we going with this? Why are they not approving these items? Thank you.
That's funny that now it's $4 million. Y'all said it was $7 million. I told you your math ain't math.
She said it was $4 million worth of checks.
Let me answer.
She don't understand. She can't read.
Respond if you want to hear my answer. That's funny that now it's $4 million. Y'all said it was $7 million. I told you your math ain't math.
She said it was $4 million worth of checks.
Let me answer.
She don't understand. She can't read.
Respond if you want to hear my answer. As it relates to the stuff that Trustee Belcher just stated, you guys have to stop coming here to grandstand. If you feel something's wrong, you guys can reach out and then you could talk to the administration that deals with the day-to-day as it relates to anything you're claiming. It's plenty of times you guys have sat here at a meeting. Please, quiet down for 1 second.
Quiet, please.
Plenty of times you guys have came to a meeting and had misinformation, misleading information. You guys have sat up here and said people said that you didn't pay them. It never was one of our vendors. So I don't entertain the stuff that y'all come up here and just say just because you want to say it for the media, for the residents, and there's no truth to it, no facts to it. And again, if you guys want to have an adult conversation with me, you know my number, you know what I live, you know all of that, Belcher. You guys can call me, but you don't. Hold on, but you don't call. You guys want to come here and put on a show for what? We still live here no matter what's going on in our neighborhood. For instance, it's a couple things y'all took off the warrant list that y'all need to put back on the warrant list. And y'all talk about y'all want to help the residents. If you want to help the residents, then help them. Why aren't y'all paying for concrete? So when they got a water main break, how do they pour concrete down? How do they fix it? Because they got to call a company out. They got to call a company out to fix it. But these are the problems that fall on my desk when y'all don't do what y'all supposed to do. And then the residents call me to fix it when y'all said no at a board meeting. Because at the end of the day, it still got to get fixed. And that's what y'all failing to realize. No matter what they say up here, y'all gonna call me the mayor. And you'll say, Mayor, I have a water main, but y'all gonna call me the mayor. And you'll say, call me the mayor. And you'll say, Mayor, I have a water main break. Can you fix it? You don't want to hear that. When it was Thanksgiving, and y'all water was out because it was a water main break. Y'all didn't call them. You called Mary Ann, you can come and fix because you was cooking your dinner. So all I'm saying to you is when they say no, I say yes. Because the mayor. And you'll say, because at the end of the day, it's a service. People move to communities for services. And when they don't get the services, why do you want to live in that community? People go and we brag about other people's community because of what they have, what they offer to the people. You won't want to raise a kid in this town if you cannot have things that the kid needs, such as running water, such as fixing a water main break, such as a playground set where you can actually go play with no graffiti on it and not a broken slide. We don't have this in our community. Y'all have a tennis court that been broke down forever. They can't even go be Serena and them. They can't even go play. They can't do nothing because we don't care. We fight over the wrong stuff. We fighting over crumbs. It's a bigger picture. And y'all got to see that. Y'all got to understand y'all worth and know what it is and know what we want to do instead of just fighting and trying to tear each other down. Oh, let me say this. Let me call them people. Let me do this. Okay, it can go both ways, but we're not doing that. All I'm saying is let's fix it. We got concrete on there y'all just took off. We got the pool on there. Them kids been asking to swim since last year. I've been asking y'all to fix that pool since last year. Every time we put it up, y'all pull it off the warrant list. For what? The kids can't swim? How we got a swimming pool in our backyard when y'all know the black and brown kids, that's the number one thing. They cannot swim. So why would we not have that in our backyard? Why we got to go elsewhere and spend money to give our kids swimming lessons? These are the problems.
Quiet, please. You're out of order, ma'am.
So why?
You're out of order.
We shouldn't have to do that. The whole point of all of this is to build the community up, not tear each other down. That is the point of this. And it's sad because you guys ran on my ticket, both of y'all, Trustee Belcher and Trustee House. Both y'all did. And when you ran on my ticket, y'all ran on my vision. My vision is to fix our community.
The vision wasn't to rob the city. The vision wasn't for the FBI. The vision wasn't for you to steal all the money. So don't start talking about the vision.
You know that is defamation. Don't start talking about the vision. Don't talk about the vision. Tell me what. Call me the mayor. Y'all gonna call me the mayor. That way. Okay, but let them do it. What you tell them? You say that and say stuff and don't answer nobody. Answer too. And let the people of the village know. Now you don't want to have it anymore. You don't want to talk about nothing else though, right? You don't want to have it people.
Ladies and gentlemen, quiet down. Ladies and gentlemen, quiet down.
You for the resident. I can do a lot. Video down every time I hear something.
Order.
on video anytime. I don't have to do it. Yeah. But at the same time, you say here's discussion. I asked you, did we get $6.8 million? You won't answer that. I'm telling you, these people, you can't tell me nothing. These people are emailing us about somebody else's property, talking about they want $7,000. These people, so when you sit here and talk about what have I done, I don't have to sit here and videotape everything I do, but I know what I ain't done. I ain't commingled no money, I ain't stole no money, and I ain't going to jail.
Ladies and gentlemen, quiet down.
I ain't stole no money, and I ain't going to jail. I ain't stole no money, and I ain't going to jail.
Ladies and gentlemen, quiet down.
That's what I ain't done. You going to jail. Don't worry about it. Nah, because I question. $6.8 million. That's what I told yesterday. Because you ain't talking on your phone. The email said Tiffany Henyard responded and was going to let me know this morning. So where's the response? All right, we gonna wrap it up. Exactly. All right, you don't want the truth. You don't want the truth. You don't want the truth. No, we ain't getting $6.8 million, and we ain't gonna get it. And she spent it before it came. Clerk, can you call the roll so we can move on? Clerk, call the roll.
You're voting on. I'll mention it.
Call the roll, clerk.
Let me do it, please.
Call the roll, clerk.
Let me do it, please. Okay, we're voting on the AP warrant list for May 6th with the amended motions, with the exceptions that Trustee House mentioned. Trustee Norwood.
Hi.
Trustee Stan Brown.
No.
Trustee Tammy Brown.
Aye.
Trustee House.
Aye.
Trustee Belcher.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay, next on the agenda is new business. Motion to terminate contract with Murphy, Frazier, and McGrath, LTD, as legislative counsel for the Board of Trustees. I placed this on here several times. I put on here every single board meeting, and I will continue to, because they are the ones that's coming in our community and robbing our communities blind. People have to wake up. They have tried to take money out of our accounts several different ways, from the insurance companies to telling us that we had to give them contract for work in our village. They is not, and I will repeat, you are not the council. You are legislative counsel for the board. Your job is to write laws for them that y'all don't do, but y'all write laws against me. That don't make no sense. But I want people to know what's going on in our community and understand the money grab before you. All this is happening and put before you because it ain't nothing but a money grab by that law firm right there, which is Otis, Stirk, and Frazier. That's the people that's trying to take the money from our village. So I wish that
Why the man next to us still with a Bentley truck?
And then keep going and move forward. That's all we want to happen, and do better with our community. So I'll put that on there, and I'm always say my little statement, and that's my statement for the record. So next on the agenda is a motion to approve the purchase of 5 residential properties, 1 commercial property from the Cook County Land Bank. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a motion and second? Any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We wouldn't trust you to buy penny candy. And you think we about to let you buy properties? We wouldn't trust you to buy penny candy. And you think we about to let you buy properties?
I could care less. You pick your vote. Choose what you want. This is again.
The village of Dolton is not in the real estate business. We're not buying no properties.
Okay, then why y'all motion and second it then? Don't motion and second that.
We had a discussion because we want the people to know why we're not. Because you would get up here and lie and be like, they don't want to buy the properties and they don't want to spend no money. So we motion and second, like we can do in Robert's Rules of Order, and discussion. The discussion is, we don't trust you to buy penny candy, and no, we're not buying no property because the village of Dolton is not in the business of property. Y'all done already stole about 60 houses, so ain't nobody gonna deal with you buying no property. So that's the end of my discussion. I second that motion.
Okay. That's so you know, for the records, is I tell y'all to go to classes, go to conference, learn.
Meanwhile, back here on our little corner of the planet, we have a finite number of waking hours, a finite number of dollars, and about 150 employees to help distribute those dollars between about 160,000 citizens. Should we listen to someone who believes she deserves more of those dollars than anyone else because God chose her to be above us? God could have sent her to our planet because he couldn't find enough locusts. We are the operational truth when we listen to each other, ignore lies, and work together to respond to each other's threats.
Tiffany Henyard's boyfriend, who is married, which is unethical, Kamal Woods was sitting right there watching him from the whole time that he was speaking.
Go to classes, go to conference, learn. The way it works as it relates to property, for those that do want to know how it works, is the board has to take the property in. The board is the one that's over the property here in our village. So she is so naive to the fact. I'm not naive. Know that, and she want to say, "Don't trust me." It don't work that way. The board is the one.
Calm down, please. Quiet, please.
To take property in.
Ma'am.
All we do is
quiet, please.
Here for you guys to see it, know it, understand it. It's up to you to take it or not. If you don't take it, this whole be it. Next on the agenda is executive session. Is there a motion to go on a closed session? A second.
Second.
Okay, I've been motioned and second. Please call the roll to go on closed session.
Now, can anybody believe that that's really a mayor of one town and a supervisor of another town, and she's commingling the funds? Virginia said corruption, greed, and incompetence run all forms of government. Please make note. Many public figures in leadership roles are not smart. And now it's turned into a pissing contest of yelling back and forth. All emotional and out of order. Nothing gets accomplished with all that screaming. No, she normally ends them and puts the people out. Here's one where they said that they bought her a BMW. They want to know if they bought her a BMW.
Question, I don't know if this is the time frame to do it. Can you please say? I don't know that there is what I would consider a rogue vehicle being paid for by the township, a luxury BMW. And I want to know, was that budgeted last year? And is it in the 2025 budget? And who is it for? And what does that person actually do for the village? That he or she needs that kind of vehicle. All right, is that it? Are you done? Are you done? Are you done, ma'am? Okay, whoever Chris is.
Unfortunately cannot, because just as some of the other residents have stated, we see this budget that, I hate to say it, but might as well have been done in crayon. Numbers, but there's nothing that backs them up. What is the budget? And that's the question. And I think the other trustees will kind of see that, when I make a motion, or we're not trying to stop things from working, people getting fed, but we just want to know what the hell's in here.
The supervisor, if I actually believe right. I'm not trying to cause any confusion or anything, but there's a lot of smoke going around. There's a fire. I love Dolton Township. I've been here about 26 years now. I'd like to stay here, but I want, and I know that the former supervisor probably did some things that he shouldn't do, and we didn't know about it. But there's a lot of confusion now, and as one speaker said before, I think that was he, price that people are mixing up Dolton with the township. Well, it is mixed up. A credit card may have been used for some Dolton business. It's hard to have trust. It's like we're losing trust in our Supreme Court. We lose trust in this local leadership because there are too many shady things that seem to be going on. Like the gentleman said before, I think he's gone. We need to pray about it because whether you believe it or not, I pray for this government, state government, county government, even the city of Chicago, because I have to go in and out of there. Township, village of Dolton. I pray that everything works well, because if it goes well, it's well for all of us. So I'd like to know what we're spending money on. I'd like a BMW myself. Can I get one?
There are a lot of rumors going around on social media, things about the township paid for bought a BMW, a Range Rover, and maybe even a Tesla. I wanted to let you know that's not true. You can look at our invoices. We have not bought any BMW. Stop the
Okay, stop so we can make his comment. Make your comment, Robert, and go sit down. Robert, go ahead and make your comment. Y'all have to be quiet so y'all can hear him.
So the BMW Range Rover is not purchased by Dolton Township. You can look at the
Okay, thank you, Robert.
Can y'all believe that? That's really the government. So I don't know about these people. We're getting close to the 3-hour mark, and I'm not going to play anymore. I was going to play a little bit of the Fani Willis. We pretty much know everything with her, but it is bad news for her that they have set a hearing with 3-judge panel for October the 4th. They say it may get moved back, but that's the latest on her. The Young Thug trial is just utterly ridiculous what those women are over there doing, and what they pulled today, trying to bring this guy that they have already sent 2 guys to prison for, trying to say Young Thug ordered his hit. It's really sad what they're doing with that case, but I have just come to the conclusion after hearing the commissioners at the Senate hearings and all of the millions that they give to these people, that a lot of these big Trump trial and Young Thug and anybody else that's supposedly a big trial is just a money grab for real, and they're just laundering money. And again, that's just my personal opinion. I do not know that for no fact. I am alleging that because it's being alleged throughout the United States. But it just stands to reason when you get $36.6 million for a budget, and then you get a portion of $75,000 from one grant, $488,000 from another grant, and then you get state grants, and you get county grants that we don't even know the dollar amounts. That's an awful lot of money for a person who pretends to have no one that they answer to because they're a constitutional officer. And like I said, I guess the next time we're together, I will show what I found as far as the constitutional officers for, Atlanta. And I didn't see the district attorney as one of those officers. But they keep saying that she is, and so they're operating out of that. But it just goes to show you how the good old boy system has been like this all the time. And it doesn't matter, as I keep saying, whether you're a woman or your ethnicity, that's given the opportunity, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, hey, Charlene, good to see you. Yeah, it is. The world is a ghetto. War told us that long time ago. The world is a ghetto. And it has nothing to do with who you are as a person. It's the condition in which you're forced to live. Because we're brilliant and resilient people. And we're forced to live in some conditions that most couldn't take it. But yet we rise. And so we're going to keep on rising, y'all. And I thank y'all for being here. I appreciate everybody for communicating. Make sure you hit the like button. And consider joining the membership. And we're going to lead with my favorite. My little children are our future. And somehow we got to teach them. We've got to teach them. Oh, we're going to be in trouble, y'all. We may not be here to see it, but the children and the grandchildren, they're going to have a terrible, terrible life. Because it's bad already. It's really bad. You can just make the best out of it and enjoy yourself. Love yourself. And then love on somebody else. Want to play, it's the wrong song. We've already been welcomed to the Tiger's Den. Good night, all. I'm leaving the Tiger's Den. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us who we used to be. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone to fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be. So I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I failed, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. And if by chance that special place that you've been dreaming of takes you to a lonely place, find yourself in love.